Yo, guys, what is going on? Oh my goodness. Well, I think we knew from the beginning that this was going to be probably the craziest fantasy season that we've seen in history. And this is most certainly proving to be that. So yesterday, obviously, we started out with Leonard Fournette being cut 10 days before the season, or before the kickoff game of the first season, about 2 weeks away. And so that was the first crazy news. And then now today we get note that the Saints are open to trading Alvin Kamara. Speculation right now, for those of you that are panicking and freaking out if you drafted Alvin Kamara or you're thinking about drafting Alvin Kamara and now you don't know what to do or you have a lot of exposure to him in your leagues, right now the sentiment is that this is a leveraging tactic. There was another update that went out that was not getting pushed around nearly as much, in that Alvin Kamara is currently asking for about $16 million, and apparently the Saints were only willing to go to about 12. So it sounds like this is a move on the Saints' part to try to gain leverage, and I don't know that they're actually serious about trying to trade him. That being said, if you're drafting tonight, or we don't have any resolution to this within the next couple of days, I would move Alvin Kamara to the bottom of my tier 2 guys. So I'd be drafting guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, and Joe Mixon over Kamara right now, just based on this news. It's really tough to do that because I think Kamara definitely has the highest ceiling of all those guys, but I do think that they're all pretty comparable. And it's not like the Saints are in desperate need for him. I do think it wouldn't really make sense for them to trade him, especially considering that they already gave Taysom Hill, a really good amount of money in the offseason, and this is a Super Bowl window for them in which Drew Brees is most likely going to be gone after this year. So the Saints are running out of time in which they can try to win that second Super Bowl with Drew Brees. So it wouldn't really make sense for them to trade away Alvin Kamara right now before the season starts, unless they truly believe that Latavius Murray and Ty Montgomery can give them the same playmaking capabilities that Kamara can, which I don't think that they do. So this sounds to me like a power move on the part of the Saints negotiating team, and I don't think it's actually going to turn into anything serious. So I guess with that, I'm not as panicked. I wouldn't move him down a tier. I wouldn't, move him to the back end of the first round. But if you are already debating between Derrick Henry or Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Alvin Kamara, I think this at least gives you the nod that if we don't have a resolution to this, then you can go ahead and take those guys over Kamara. Again, I'm not saying you have to do that. I think that this will end up resulting, hopefully, in him getting a contract. But at this point, we're going to monitor the situation. I'm not expecting there to be any movement. I don't believe Alvin Kamara is not going to be a Saint. Now, there's a chance that this could linger and this could impact games. That's always a possibility, which is unfortunate, and that's kind of been the problem overall this year. We saw Joe Mixon got his money today. Another thing we want to talk about. So Joe Mixon now back on our favorability list and should be, a mid-first round pick. I think he's going to smash this year. Jumps right back up into that tier with Alvin Kamara. And Dalvin Cook, we're still waiting. There are reports that they're not discussing their contract anymore, but that doesn't change the fact that if Dalvin Cook doesn't have a contract heading into the season, then he still holds a very high likelihood that he will hold out. So we knew going into the season that the three biggest risks of a holdout for running backs were Kamara, Mixon, and Dalvin Cook. Based on the leverage of the team, we figured the lowest likelihood of someone holding out would have been Mixon. The highest likelihood would have been Cook. And Kamara, I think people just kind of forgot about Kamara because he hadn't really said anything. Like Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon kind of both alluded to the fact that they were going to hold out in June or sometime in the summer. I can't remember whether it was May or June. Whereas Alvin Kamara didn't really say anything, although I think it was about 2 weeks ago on his Twitter account, he apologized for it was pretty vague. So maybe that was what this is in reference to. But again, back to the subject matter at hand. If you have Alvin Kamara, do not just go rush and trade him unless you can get someone like Derrick Henry or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, someone that you would have considered drafting over him. So if someone comes to you and offers you something stupid, just wait, because there is no clear indication that the Saints are actually trying to trade Alvin Kamara. It's so close to the season. This is literally like their last year in the Super Bowl window with Drew Brees, because we're all expecting Drew Brees to retire at the end of this year, and if not at the end of the next year. It doesn't make sense for them to just take one of their biggest playmakers and chuck him right before the season starts. So I would not panic or freak out if you own Alvin Kamara right now. That being said, if you haven't drafted yet, again, if you have other players that you like around Alvin Kamara and you want to avoid the potential headache, just take Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, any of those guys. You can take them over Alvin Kamara, because I have them all in the same tier anyway. I feel like they have the same upside. So if you've already drafted, don't panic. If you haven't drafted, still don't panic, but you have clearance to now take the guy that you were considering taking over Alvin Kamara anyway. And then remember, no one's talking about it right now, but Dalvin Cook is in this exact same situation, and I guarantee you, he's going to look at what Joe Mixon did, especially guys, like if Alvin Kamara ends up getting a deal. If Kamara and Mixon get a deal, Dalvin Cook is most certainly not going to just sit there and let this stand. Like, we know that. Like, these guys talk to each other. They know each other. It's not going to work that way. So you have to pay attention to the whole picture here. Joe Mixon gets his deal. That's great. Now, Joe Mixon is a secure asset in fantasy. Dalvin Cook is still practicing, but according to the CBA, he can still miss games in the career season, and he knows that. Alvin Kamara is thinking the same thing. Obviously, the Saints are taking a little bit more of a pushy role in threatening to trade him. Again, I don't know that they're actually going to do that, and I don't think that they will, but this could end up pushing into the season if this is not resolved. I mean, today's September 1st. The season starts in a little more than a week. So there's a very short amount of time for them to fix this. And it seems like Alvin Kamara is prepared to at least wait a bit. If he's not able to get a contract, he could miss a few games. But again, I think they'll get a deal done. Since this is a Super Bowl window, I think they're going to find a way to get him there. I think they'll be able to talk him back down to like the Mixon range. I mean, they gave Mixon $14 million a year. Alvin Kamara is asking for 16. The Saints are looking for 12. So hopefully they'll meet somewhere in the middle between like 13 and 14. I don't think he's going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is tanking, so it wouldn't really make sense for them to cut Leonard Fournette and then go grab Alvin Kamara in a season where they're trying to go 0-16. I mean, if anyone was to trade for him, I mean, it's really hard to speculate because we even just found out now that Leonard Fournette did not get claimed off of waivers. So, and granted, these guys aren't really on the same tier of talents. They play an entirely different role in today's NFL. But, the fact that Leonard Fournette was able to clear waivers shows that there's no one currently in the NFL that feels like their running back situation is bad enough that they need to rush out and grab Leonard Fournette. I don't really see anyone clamoring to try to trade for Alvin Kamara prior to the season starting because Alvin Kamara is going to be in the same boat. So if he's holding out of practice right now and he doesn't want to play under his, I think it's like a $2 million deal, it's either 1.2 or $2 million, I can't remember. And he doesn't want to play the year under that contract, wants to get an extension and get it up to about $16 million, which I don't think he's going to get there, but hopefully he'll come to his senses. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like, I want these guys to get paid. It's really hard for running backs right now. It's a really sticky situation because I like the players and I think that they should get paid for what they're doing. But also when you pay attention to the way the market looks, he could totally get shafted if he's not careful. We've seen what happened to Melvin Gordon and Le'Veon Bell. I mean, Melvin Gordon was offered $10 million a year in Los Angeles. He didn't want it. And then he ended up signing a 2-year, $7 million deal in Denver the very next year. So these holdouts, at least in the past couple examples, have ended very poorly for these running backs. So what I mean by that is I hope that they can come to a reasonable deal that doesn't impact his future, while still at least getting him close to what he deserves. Because Alvin Kamara is definitely a playmaker, and he does, brings a entirely different element to this team. At the same time, we've seen with other teams across the league, they're able to manage without a highly paid running back. And smart money says don't spend money on a running back. So it's kind of a nuanced thing to say, but for fantasy, I just hope that they can come to an agreement. Again, if you're asking my take on it right now, I don't think that he's going to get traded. I do think that there is some potential that this could leak into the regular season and they might miss a game or two. My guess is the Saints will find a way to negotiate a deal before that, because again, this is a Super Bowl window for them and they don't want to risk anything this year. But now that they've thrown it out there, we do have to act as if he could potentially be traded. So again, for those of you joining in now, if you've already drafted and you have Alvin Kamara, don't panic. Don't just trade him for the first offer you get. If you're able to get, someone that I have in the same tier, if you were able to trade him 1-for-1 for Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, I would do that, but that's because I would have already considered drafting those guys above Kamara anyway. I would not trade Kamara for someone that I see as lower than him. So I wouldn't trade him for Drake. I wouldn't trade him for Austin Eckler or Aaron Jones or Josh Jacobs. Like, there's a tier break there, so I wouldn't go sacrifice that tier break just off of this news, because at this point it's truly just speculation. And then jumping over to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's someone else that at this point, like, I value pretty much the same as Alvin Kamara. Now that he is locked and loaded, he's been looking like he's been on fire in camp. So Joe Mixon is set to have a terrific fantasy year. So, I mean, if someone offered you Joe Mixon for Alvin Kamara right now, I'd probably take it. And if you're drafting, like if you haven't drafted yet, whether you're doing it tonight or sometime this week, if we don't have a resolution to this, I would take Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, all above Alvin Kamara. But again, coming back to the third point here I want to make is we're talking about Alvin Kamara because it's been thrown out there, but Dalvin Cook is not safe. If you have Dalvin Cook, you have to have Alexander Mattison. Hopefully you listened to me in my breakdown video where I talked about this. If you have Alexander Mattison, then you're fine. And I guess the same thing is true here. Right now, like, Latavius Murray is the other question, right? So if you haven't drafted yet, where are you taking Latavius Murray? Well, obviously I think his ADP just jumped up into like the 7th or 8th round. If you have Alvin Kamara, you need Latavius Murray. That would be the move I would want to make if you're able to do that. I don't know that you're going to be able to do that for the price, because whoever has Latavius Murray, if it's not you, is probably going to try to hose you. So again, I wouldn't overpay for anybody. There's never a reason to overpay. But if you're able to acquire Latavius Murray for a reasonable price at this point, I would definitely do it. Because if this does linger and he misses a couple games, Latavius Murray is going to absolutely ball out in those first couple weeks, as we've seen. Last year, in the couple weeks that Alvin Kamara missed, Latavius Murray was a running back 1, and I think that would continue. In dynasty leagues, maybe go look and see if Ty Montgomery is on your waiver wire. It might be a decent pickup at this point, but hopefully I've laid that out. So if you guys come in and watch this after I've done the stream, and you have questions about what you want to do, before you do anything, you just calm down, think it through, and make sure we get some more details. Because, the news report that came out right after this is that they are literally in contract negotiations right now. So this, to me, sounds like a power trip, or not power trip, just a power move in terms of the Saints saying, well, if you're not going to, fall in line with what we're trying to offer you, then we'll just trade you. I don't know if it's serious, but it does sound like they were trying to use this as leverage. If I had to make a prediction at this point, I think Alvin Kamara will get a deal done. It'll probably be a little less than what he's asking for right now, and I think they'll start the season with Alvin Kamara. But if we don't have any resolution by this weekend, I know for a fact that I would be drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Derrick Henry, and Miles Sanders, and Joe Mixon over Kamara just to avoid the headache. You might end up getting Kamara at a great deal this weekend. I also like that too. Just make sure you grab Latavius Murray. And then the main point I want to make is, if you've drafted Dalvin Cook, go get Alexander Mattison right now before this same story happens with Dalvin Cook. If you already have Mattison, you're good. If not, I would do it now while you can still get him cheap, because with Mixon getting paid, with McCaffrey getting paid, with Alvin Kamara now in this situation, there's no way Dalvin Cook plays his season on the current contract that he has, because the way he perceives his value, he sees himself as the best running back in the league. He said so himself. In comparison to Mixon, Kamara, Chris McCaffrey, he thinks he's the best, and he knows that the Vikings rely heavily on his role in Minnesota. So if he sees his buddy Mixon get paid $14 million, and then let's just say Kamara gets the same deal that Mixon got today, he gets paid $14 million, McCaffrey's making $16 million, Zeke is making, I can't remember now, but somewhere in that same range, he's going to look at the Vikings organization and say, hey, I'm not playing unless you're willing to do for me what these other teams did for them. So while we're talking about Kamara now, I want to make sure that anyone that watches the stream knows this same thing applies to Dalvin Cook, even though his name is not being thrown out there right now. So be prepared for that. Welcome to the hell season of 2020. This is going to be a very bumpy ride, and we'll try to keep you guys on the DL as much as we can. But hit me up in the comment section if you watch this later. Let me know if you have any questions. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I mentioned it briefly, but Leonard Fournette was not picked up off of waivers. I didn't think that he would be. And the reason being is if someone picked him up off of waivers, then they would have to pick up his $4 million deal. I don't think anyone wanted to pay $4 million to Leonard Fournette, which is the exact reason that no one traded a 5th or 6th round pick, which is what the Jaguars are trying to get for him. No one wanted to take on that contract. Now, I think for $1 million, there's plenty of teams that are going to be interested. Bears, Patriots, Texans, Chiefs, maybe not the Chiefs, Eagles, Falcons, even the Saints now, I think all are in play for potentially signing Leonard Fournette to like a $1 or $2 million deal. So wait that one out. I mean, if he goes to the Saints, that changes a lot of things, but I don't think that's going to happen either. So there's a lot up in the air right now, and it's a moving target. Hopefully you waited until this coming weekend to do your draft. That's pro tip for you if you guys are watching this, and I get if you do it earlier, you can technically have an edge, I guess, knowing news, like if you're paying more attention. But the way I see it, especially if you're playing in like home leagues, I like to have most of the news out there, as many injuries that have occurred as possible, because it just makes for a more competitive league, and you don't have crazy situations like this happening after your draft, typically, unless they happen during the regular season, which you can't prevent. So if you already had your draft, then have fun, because this is gonna be a very interesting situation to monitor. But going forward, have your draft the Labor Day weekend or the Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend before the start of the regular season. Pro tip. But yeah, so Leonard Fournette, still have no idea where he's going to go. There's been no inkling or inclination as to who might sign him. He apparently filed a grievance against the Jaguars today for the $4 million that he feels that he's owed. I don't know that that's going to go anywhere, but until we know more about where he ends up signing, we won't speculate. There's enough speculation going on right now. It means nothing. We don't know where he's going to go. So we'll react to it once it happens. But again, same MO as yesterday. If you have Fournette, just hold on, because you don't know what his value is going to be in a day, and it doesn't do you any good to sell at 20 cents on the dollar. Same thing with Kamara. Don't just sell because of this news. Make sure you get value. I think I've said my piece. It's pretty much all I have to say on this. So go back and rewatch the stream if you just joined in late, and hit me up with any questions below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But good luck to you guys. Hopefully we get some more information, and I'll come back once we do. All right, take care.